good news for all of you. That was quick. What did you drop or what did you? Nothing. Good. I'm with you. Good news for all of you. You have to think about paying for the AP exam. It has to be paid by November 1st to the bookkeeper. I know. I'm not a fan of the November 1st date, but that's the way it goes. What a play! You have to be ready. Someone's walking behind me. Yeah! That's the price you pay. I'm coming back. Oh my God. They're off. Great. Keep your eye on me. It could come any moment. Oh, what a play. Okay, so real fast. You have to pay. College Board says it's $94, but I'll tell you what I do. I'll make a deal with you. You give me $94, and I'll make sure that you get a good seat. You still have to pay them $94, but you give me $94. It'll be padded. Oh, right up front. Did you see that?
But we take the AP test here.
Huh?
We take the AP test here.
Used to.
We don't. Where do we take it? This.
You just got to wander and hopefully a test will win. I have no idea where. Last year they took it at Carroll underneath because we had like 80 some. Okay. This year we have well over 180 U.S. history students. So.
Is it timed? How long do you have?
4 hours.
That's a long test.
It's over 5. And yeah, this used to be a curtain, which I'm so glad it's gone. But we just going to open this up, and then we did it here. Well, actually, it was kind of nice, but now they have to find a room big enough. And
Which room's right there?
Mr. Bugard. It was kind of bad though because he could hear everything I said, and I'm loud, and I can hear whatever goes on in his room. But
What's that?
So you heard the movies.
The only problem is now we have this is a false, ceiling, and that's still open, so he still hears me a little bit. The curtain's still there. They just literally just took my big sheets of plywood and covered it up.
Really?
Yeah, the curtain's still.
No, you can like see there.
Oh,
no, like,
it's a
yeah,
wall.
like,
I'll tell you what, you go ahead first to the
like,
wall, get to the curtain. Or you can find one extra credit. Okay, so $94 for the AP exam. And you pass it, it's over 99% of the colleges in the country you get credit for. All the state schools you need, it's a 5-point scale, 3 and above you get credit. So like at UM you get 6 credits. MSU it's 8, that was a slightly different scale. Private schools are now requiring a higher score because they want something called money. So they're taking money, and a lot of money. And so it has nothing to do with the fact, that it's nothing to do with that somebody in the schools are better, so they're not. And I do not make you take the test, but I definitely reward people for taking the test because second semester we have 2 year-long finals. 2 of them. You have to take. But one of the finals is on May 8th, the same day as the AP exam. So if you're taking the AP exam, you got to do 2 tests. No. If you're taking the AP exam, that final's waived. You don't have to take that.
So what do you count as a final? What do you put in as a final?
Well, we have 2 finals. And so if I waive it, it just means it won't count forward against you, just won't count. And then the second final, everyone will take about 2 weeks after this. Everyone takes it. That one. And it is smaller. It's less, it took most people last year less than a period. But I also understand how difficult, how stressful the AP exam is and how much you're going to prepare. You're going to have to do a lot of things to prepare for that test. And I think that's fair because I know how difficult that test is. and I know you're gonna work very hard, and I know it's very stressful, so I reward you for taking it. But if you decide not to, which is perfectly fine, I also think it's fair, but you gotta do some kind of final. So that's what you have to do. Yeah,
You know, all the AP exams are $94.
they should be. I think they're all, I can't imagine the College Board makes them different. I think there's a couple you might have to pay extra for like something with, because you have to buy something with the test, but I don't think we even offer those classes. So. And have to go to the bookkeeper, Ms. Diosa, who's really easy to work with, so we'll talk to her. But if you pay, the check has to be the capital I, that's in one lump payment, and please get a receipt, just in case something happens and they accidentally don't have a release. Yes.
How many people pass it? Like, how many, like, is it worth taking? Do most people pass it?
Well, yeah, I won't lie to you. The AP exam for the AP US history is the hardest test. Not for the different, but they just grade it the hardest.
Okay.
They only let about half pass nationwide.
Okay.
Now, last year in my class, about 73% or something passed.
Okay.
Yeah, we do a lot better here than the national average.
Wait, so a lot of people say that they got a 3. Does that not count at some colleges?
Some private schools don't take them.
But if you get a 4, you're guaranteed.
They'll take, yeah, they'll pretty much. And then some like, there's a few like Ivy League schools. And the thing is, they want that money, you know. But all the state schools in virtually every state in the country, 3 US history. Carroll used to be 3, and now they've gone up to 4 for US history. Why? How much is the credit cost of Carroll? It's like 45 million. That's what we call hyperbole, but it's really expensive, and they want the money. Of course, where the state schools are, where they're cutting funding on colleges, you never know, but you should be fine. And I would highly recommend taking it, but you have to pay by November 1st. There might be a little leeway here and there, but they need the money because then they have to they order all the tests by November 15th. So they have to have everything in because our school makes an order for all the tests. And I don't know where it's going to be. I like it outside. By the way, have you ever been in a class? Yeah, but it's a nice thing. Let's go outside. And that's like the dumbest thing ever. Unless you're not doing anything. Why? Because like you start class and all of a sudden, bird, squirrel, and cloud. Not a good thing for class. Yes, I like being outside too. All right, so, but that's what we do after the AP exam. We'll finish up any loose ends. Things we didn't quite finish up, we'll have the final, and then we'll be outside, nothing but things. Running, ball sits, bar hangs. Yeah, that's what we do for the whole time. And the final, I'm on. Okay, so let's go ahead then and, final. Final. Test. I should add, I don't like it this early. Even though I do believe most of you would, I believe you should take the test. Almost everyone did last year. My class, just a couple didn't. And they did well, and I think you guys will do well. But still, we just don't know yet. You don't really start feeling confident about what you're doing until, I would say, February, March. I mean, it's really true. You start kind of getting to the swing of things. And I wish we didn't have to do this early, but that's just the way it is.
If they're going to take a test, why take the AP class and not the regular one?
Well, this goes on your record. And trust me, colleges and applicants for scholarship, they look at this. And
Even if you don't take the test?
Yeah, oh yeah. Because it counts as advanced placement. They see you did AP and they say, okay, this person challenged himself, took hard classes. The number one thing they look for in colleges, when they look at that kind of thing, it's not your GPA, it's how many honors classes and difficult classes you do. Yeah. Or it's much better to get a B in an AP class than an A in a regular class. Much better. And it helps you prepare better for college if you want to go to college. That's if you think about college. Okay, so I'm going to give you the review list for the test tomorrow. I was hoping the test would be Friday, but I don't know if I'm going to make it. So if we do that, we just do a take-home test. By the way, if a teacher ever asks for a take-home test, run away in fear. They're always going to be much harder and significantly more work. Yes.
Why?
Because you can use anything you want.
So they just, and so since you're looking off your notes, they got to find out some way to make it.
Not really.
It's like, no,
Yeah.
like Google knows everything.
So they just give you more work to do. They make it.
Yeah.
It did pop up on any.
So, any questions? Oh, I'll do the same thing as the last test. I'll give you the list. I'll give you the asterisks about which ones will be on the final. Or, I'm sorry, which ones will be short IDs. That's the last time I'll do that.
Oh, no.
Then I'll start giving you hints. And then, now when we do a regular essay, which we're going to do an essay sometime, kind of want to do it next week, but the problem is with the test, and then we only have a 3-day weekend, and then that.
Next week is
PSAT.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Oh, yeah.
Plus we
I
have.
mean, you gotta come back with PSAT.
Yeah, we'll be here for this class.
Yeah, we get started at 12.
Oh, that's good news. Like I said, we'll just do a standardized testing. Okay, so everybody, do we get to this? Do we get to this?
Yes.
Oh, the Inception Bill. Hamilton found Jefferson and Madison's price to support the Inception Bill. What was the price? Well, he bought them off with what?
The capital.
And where was the capital going to be? I mean, what section of the country? No, it's Washington, D.C. Yeah, right up here, right in Quebec. It shocked everybody. You know, southern capital, rural capital. And what did Jefferson call the speculators that Hamilton wanted to help? Yeah, they were mercenaries. But Hamilton, very consciously, was trying to buy what from the speculators? Buy their what? Bonds. But he wanted to buy the bonds and sell them. Yeah, buy their loyalty. They weren't going to get their money back unless the country is here. By the way, that gets to the point where Hamilton thinks people are just generally pretty horrible. And they are. Be careful. So watch us. Everyone wants to be like us.
You made your choice.
I am back. I just heard down the hall. No! So this is what they're watching. This guy's holding a musket. Okay.
Do you have the camera set up?
Huh? Yeah, the camera's going. You didn't do anything bad, did you?
I didn't.
Who did something bad?
No, I didn't.
Get the socks. Yeah, we're having to work to get your neck in there, but we'll make it fit. All right, so that one we might have to shut the camera. All right, so okay, so the thing is, oh, no, it's on camera. Keep track of yourself. All right, so what Hamilton wanted to go around Hamilton wanted the implied powers to make a what? Bank. And with this bank, tax receipts would back what? The bank would issue what? Backed by tax receipts. Loan. Not just loans, but what else? Yeah, currency. They control the money supply. By the way, what does that today? Yeah, the Federal Reserve System. And it has some control over the money supply, not complete. It doesn't mean people have to spend it. The money supply means the money in national circulation. And they also want to create more what? We wanted industrial growth, but you can't have industrial growth and people starting these kind of businesses, these merchants, unless there's a what? What kind of system? Say it again, someone said. Yeah, private banks, a private banking system. A private banking system. And he wanted protective, or to keep out imports, protective what? And that didn't happen. So we got to this war, right? Did we get to here? Do we talk about beheading the queen?
No.
Do it again.
Do it again. Pop the head off. Let's see if we can get this on film. Oh! I was hoping it'd pop up. The old one used to pop up. If you set this down, it goes. That's just really ghoulish. All right.
Put it on backwards.
Because it doesn't stick forward, it just comes off. So she's possessed. All right, so what happened was, when the revolution began, Jefferson really thought it was his revolution because of the Declaration of Independence. He admired France, but also this concept that more people had rights and power. To Jefferson, he was always thinking, at least for white men, they should have more of a voice. So here's the storming of the Bastille. We talked about this in class, right? I mentioned that.
No.
just very briefly. And at first it was a republic, but then it devolved, or not, then it evolved actually, I'm sorry, not devolved, evolved into a more egalitarian state where people had more rights. But then what happened was they thought that the king and queen were trying to rally other countries to attack France. And so they arrested the king and queen. And so then what did everybody do? Everyone attacked France. Why? Because they're worried they might do something to the king, and which they did. They beheaded the king and the queen of France. They beheaded the king and queen of France. What fun new execution machine did they use? That was supposed to be humane. Because it would kill them so fast. When they cut their head off with an axe, you know, if you miss a little bit, you might take a few more blows. I'll let you ponder that one. Now, you have to be really good with an axe to cut a head off. And, you know, college degrees and that are pretty difficult to get. But the guillotine, the whole idea was it would kill them humanely. And so they killed the French king and his wife, who was Austrian, Marie Antoinette. And that's when basically everybody now became full-scale war against the French, where the revolution might spread to their countries and behead their king and queen. And the French Revolution really is in many ways a climactic event and the biggest revolution in world history, or maybe the second biggest. And a massive invasion had hard to find one with greater impact. I mean, the Russian Revolution had a lot of impact, but the actual revolution itself was pretty small, just a couple thousand people involved. This traumatic event, and divided both sides. British, much more the aristocracy in charge, and so Hamilton, who admired their economy. Well, the French wanted American support. They got rid of titles of nobility and named everyone citizen. The Soviets did the same thing after the Russian Revolution. What did they call? Anyone know? Everyone was equal. There's no more titles of nobility. They copied the French. And the French, everybody just became citizen, not Mr. or Sir or Sire. Say it again? Comrade. Yeah, comrade meant the same thing. They really copied the French. Guinea came over to try to get the United States into the revolution. But many people, including Washington, thought that this person from another country, the term alien, so he could have been another world, I don't know, but he was a dangerous alien trying to bring the French Revolution to the United States, which actually wasn't quite true, even though there were elements of this. And Guinea came to represent somebody from a foreign country trying to destabilize the United States to people like Hamilton. Yes?
Oh, who thought he would bring, that guy would bring the war to the United States?
People who supported Hamilton and the president. Washington did too. And they kind of invalidated the Franco-American alliance. This is the Battle of Valmy, where the French actually won against a bigger army and really showed the French were an amazing military force. But a commercial war to the American point of view is what happens. And this didn't affect the U.S. directly, it affected American merchants. British ships were blockading French harbors. And they were stopping American merchant ships so they couldn't trade with Britain to hurt their economy. France couldn't blockade Britain. They didn't have a powerful enough fleet. But they sent their ships out to operate as pirates. Remember the term privateers? And they had a name for them. Corsairs. And Washington in this fight declared the U.S. neutral. The U.S. could not stop either French corsairs or the British blockade. And he did not want a dangerous war that could not only destabilize the government, but even end the United States, because it was so new. And what could the United States do? The U.S. is small, it's relatively weak, it doesn't have a navy. Washington desperately wanted out of this because of the corsairs and the British blockade. Now, there was massive fighting in the continent. The British, though, they're an island nation, they're using their fleet in this war. To our point of view, that was the war. And it's going to be this way all the way to 1815, when Napoleon is finally defeated. But with this neutrality, while this is going on, the U.S. has other issues with Britain. Not just its blockade, but trade issues, especially in the Great Lakes. So ironically, while this is going on, and French corsairs and the British blockade. I should add, the US did most of their trade with Britain, so the corsairs were actually the biggest threat.
And those are pirates.
Huh?
Pirates.
Yeah, they're actually, sometimes they're just pirates. Sometimes it's actually the French Navy moonlighting as pirates. The United States was negotiating a treaty with Britain called Jay's Treaty. And when the treaty came out, right in the middle of this controversy, and don't forget, we have all the other issues of the bank, the Inception Bill. Jay's Treaty came out, and it was, or at least appeared, pro-British. It appeared pro-British just because the U.S. didn't get much out of it. The U.S. was weak. Britain could kind of dictate the terms. And actually, the Washington administration was happy to get a treaty. But followers of men like Jefferson, soon more and more being called Republicans, were furious. Here's Jon Jay, a portrait of him. He was the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. It was still not clear who would do foreign policy for the president. It's the Secretary of State now. So they sent the Chief Justice, which is so weird. It's unimaginable the Chief Justice would go, just like Washington, the president would lead troops. And what was that rebellion where Washington did lead troops? Well, Shays Rebellion was rebellion right after the Inception Bill? Yeah, the Whiskey Rebellion. So the other day, I went by someplace, I was trying out my new binoculars. Good story, huh? And, oh, by the way, I saw a northern shoveler duck. You ever seen one of those? It got a beak about that long. It was like a big mallard with a long beak. You're supposed to go, cool.
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 Yeah, I can really tell that was sincere. Actually, it was really cool, but there was this guy walking his dog just ran around. And the dog, this one dog was just out of control. And he just kept yelling, "Whiskey, get back here, Whiskey." He named his dog Whiskey. Okay, moving on. Yes?
What was the purpose of Jay's treaty?
What's that?
What was the purpose of the treaty?
The purpose with Britain, to negotiate basically, not only to try to do something about the blockade, but also to try to open up the Great Lakes. And so Republicans burned Jay in effigy. They were furious with him. And they thought, here is Jay's treaty, and therefore, because it's his administration, Washington's trying to give the United States back to the British. Washington's a traitor. A monarchist, they called him, which is patently ridiculous, but gives you an idea how partisan between the two different groups it came, and violent. I should add, this is the Chief Justice. Every Supreme Court, it's named after the justice. That's the Jay Court, and soon after that will be the Marshall Court and the Taney Court. So today, what's the court? Who's the Chief Justice? No? No. Okay. Now it's time to know stuff. I said this before, and I'll say it again. It's time to start knowing stuff. It's not so, okay, you don't know now, but now it's time to start. Because if you don't, you'll be taken advantage of by people who do know and can manipulate you. And little things like knowing who the Chief Justice is important to accumulate knowledge. That is my little lecture on It's Time to Know Stuff. Because how many will be able to vote in the next presidential election? Okay, not that many in here. Well, I guess you guys can wait. No, you can't. But it's John Roberts. This is the Roberts Court. He was appointed by George W. Bush. Right now it's the Roberts Court. And some big cases are coming up, including a case that they very well might reverse. For example, 8 years ago, when the Supreme Court ruled that, like for example, gay marriage was legal under the 14th Amendment, that's a very good chance that will be reversed. And that's like a big ruling that's coming up, and also things about labor unions, environmental laws. So Supreme Court's a big deal. So Jay's Treaty. So this gave this feeling that one party was pro-British and going to give back to the British, and it showed how divided it was in the war. People could understand. But before we get to that real partisan divide, we got to get back to Hamilton. Because Hamilton's vision would also be in many ways called Hamiltonian economics. And all these things, remember the bank, the Inception Bill, and the tariff led to this basic belief that Hamilton believed that the merchant class created the wealth. Therefore, this merchant class, for some reason I decided to capitalize all the letters, or all the first letters, but the merchant class creates wealth. And with that, oh, don't you like this picture? Doesn't it look like he's going into the wind? So they had to keep the wind on the whole time they painted that portrait. For 5 weeks. I have no idea. So, with that, so government policy should be directed towards the financial elite. Because it's the money elite that will either buy or loan the money to those who want to create wealth, aka industry. So government policy should be geared to them, not farmers, not working people, and certainly not the poor, because they won't know what to do with it. And then he wanted direct government aid, not just policy, but aid. So that means either tax policies that directly benefit them, or direct government aid in the terms of money given to, I put down business, but I was thinking industry, but the big, but also banking. But also things like build them roads, build them canals. And then the next 40 years after this, you have railroads, and then harbors. In the 20th century, paved roads, and a highway system, airports, all of those things that directly benefit business. And I didn't put this down, but who will pay for it? Everybody else. So the working people, and to Jefferson and Madison, the farmers. So everyone got that. Everyone's going to pay for that, and then the money will go to them on top. With the idea being is they know how to create wealth. So his main basic idea, the premise of Hamiltonian economics, is the rich aren't rich enough. The more wealth they have, the country will prosper, because they know what to do with it. It's a very elitist policy. Only those on top who have money and come from wealth know what to do with it.
Was Hamilton really rich then?
No, but he wanted to be. But of course, there wasn't anybody out really rich yet. There's a few people with a lot of land wealth, but no one really had a lot of money. This is his vision toward the future. And some of this would happen, most certainly. But one more really important thing, this goes back to the idea of the Inception Bill. That means part of the way to do this is to keep wages low. Now, when I say wages, all of you have an idea about wages. The actual wage system that you know what is, hasn't been created. He's envisioning this. And even then, he could not envision what's going to happen. And the wage system is shockingly brutal. It's horrifically brutal sometimes, to this day. And that's what he said. And one thing we have to add about this, that means wage earners. He wants to have as little power as possible. As little power as possible. Because if wage earners have power, what will they do? They'll make sure government policy starts doing something to wages called get them higher. So he wants to make sure they don't have power. If they have power, wages go up. Just simply the way it is. And so he wants them low wage. In fact, ideally, like when those even though it didn't work this way, he was hoping farmers would be driven out with the whiskey tax. Desperate, terrified workers drop all wages because they force wages down. And then if you're terrified and desperate and worried you might starve, you take lower wages and you don't complain. That's what he wanted. That was his goal. It's pretty brutal. Hamilton is a brutal policy, but that was what's coming. And this Hamiltonian economics, it would be the predecessor, so the beginning of a national economic program. Today it's called macroeconomics, but it will be, in about 100 years afterwards, you'll have a name for it. There'll be some laissez-faire, trickle down, but there's a very, very basic name for this style of economics. It's either liberal or conservative. Which one is it? Yeah, this is what, by the 1890s, will be called conservative economics to this. So Hamilton, in many ways, really is the foundation of conservative economics. And that's nothing to do with, it's the government, big government, but to help those on top. And no one help them because you want to keep wages low. And so we'll come back to this idea a lot, but I want to set this up, set the stage, and I should add. So we have winner take all, therefore we have two political parties. Both political parties, at least in the last 40 years, have been, get my years right, yeah, about 40 years, 35 years at least, have been pretty conservative. But one political party is significantly more conservative than the other political party. Which party today is the most conservative? Yes, I am called Republican. Yeah. Democrats were pretty conservative for a long time. It appears to be changing a little bit, but we'll see. Economic, I'm just talking economic. But the Republican Party is even more conservative. It's getting more conservative every day. They just passed a massive tax cut for the very wealthy, and it's all going to the top, and that's the plan. So, Washington, seeing the bickering and the partisan feuding, he actually felt a need leaving office. I mean, when George Washington is being called a traitor, he felt it necessary. And he wrote it down. This is his handwritten farewell address, and it was printed and then given to Congress. He did not actually read it. That wouldn't happen until the 20th century. Now it's a big event. Like when President Obama left in your lifetime in January of 2017, he gave his farewell address to Congress. They just kind of started that tradition. And so probably when Trump leaves, if he does win re-election, he'll give you his in January of 2021. That, I'm just saying, if he does win re-election, 2025. But with this, a couple things. First off, he warned against foreign entanglements. He said these kind of wars can break apart the Union. And he understood that the threat of war can lead to repression. France started the revolution as equality for all people, and it was devolving into executing anybody who might be an enemy. War does that to people. And then one more thing, and don't ask why I did it this way, because I didn't mean to, it just kind of happened. But because of the bitter two-party partisan divide, he warned against political parties. I'm not sure what I did, and then I thought about changing it, and I forgot. Over lunch, I was talking on the phone. Good story, huh? The bitter partisan divide. So he warned against political parties, saying, we must come together and find common solutions. And a lot of people to this day still say that, but this is shockingly naive, even to, without a doubt, and I'm just telling you that because of what Washington did, because Washington was involved in this, even though he never joined either party. Washington supported the Inception Bill. Washington supported the Bank of the United States. Washington made political decisions that others disagreed with. So many times people will say, let's end the bickering between the parties and come together and find a solution. When people say that, most of the time what they really mean is, let's end the bickering and come up with a solution, my solution. And you should quit bickering and come up with my solution. That's what they normally mean. So always take that with a grain of salt, because there are disagreements. Here is Washington supposedly talking from heaven, and these, I guess, are supposed to be clouds. But what do they look like? I even think of smoke or rocks piled up, and this Washington with a shockingly big nose is warning these two now Federalists and Republicans who are pulling apart the country that says liberty and independence there.
So Washington did.
I don't, as I understand, this was before he died.
He's in heaven somehow?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So this cartoon was made, it was made before 1799 when he died, but they decided to put him dead anyways. But as you can see from this easy to follow chart from an old textbook, we have Federalists versus Republicans. And you'll notice, once again, guy with coonskin hat. But he's wearing a shirt. So he's not a whiskey producer. Who's that? And Jefferson became to represent the Federalists in many ways. That's at the Jefferson Memorial. That's the statue of Hamilton in front of the Treasury building, right by the old Treasury building by the White House. His ideas represent the Federalists. Even though it's much more complex than this, we got to get through the parties.
You just said both of them represented different groups.
Did I really? Jefferson represented the Republicans, I'm sorry. If you look in the textbooks or if you go on the internets or looking through the tubes on the internets, what you will find out is they'll put down Democratic Republicans. They do it in your textbook too. They didn't call themselves Democratic Republicans. They call themselves Republicans. And they just do that to differentiate them from future Republicans and future Democrats, which I guess kind of makes sense. But when we actually have to write down all the presidents, when I mean we, I mean you, the collective we. So like for first semester on the Friday before the first semester exam, you have to do all the presidents from Washington to Teddy Roosevelt in order with their parties and just all Republican, that's all. The next Jefferson through John Quincy Adams, just Republicans. And their heights. And let's go with the height of their Secretary of State too. I don't need to know names, just heights. You think you're right? Yeah?
Yeah.
Actually, just put down heights. No, I don't want name, nothing, just heights. How tall was Martin Van Buren, the little magician? So close, he's 5'6".
Wait, what?
So I used to joke around about this 2 years ago. A girl in my class wrote down, she memorized all the heights and weights of the presidents. And she did that. And it was so impressive, I tacked it up.
Wow. She can enter credit.
That is credit enough. It's memorialized. Yes, Donald Trump at 6'2", 236.
Who is the shortest president?
Madison. He was under 5'4". So, Federalist Republicans. And people were a little bit shorter, but not as much. You ever see old clothes and always like, you go to a museum and they have like clothing and it's always like really small? And you thought they must have been tiny. No, it's because clothes like that were rarely worn, so they survived. They were actually a little taller than that. But because we have winner take all, there are two parties, so not every Federalist agreed with this and not every Republican. It was much more complex, just like today. Not every Republican agrees with the Republican policy, and Democrats are even more divided on it. So it's much more complex. So let's get to the Northeast, kind of merchants, more of the elite, or more and more. The Republicans were, even though led by elites, and that's why I have it in parentheses, they begin to say they're for the common man. Now, when I say common, that does not mean like common as in average. Here's mediocre. Common means common birth. They weren't born to aristocratic parents or of wealth or nobility. They're just like everybody else. And what the point of view, somebody like Jefferson says, regardless of your birth, you should go as far as your abilities take you. That's, remember, the pursuit of happiness. But that's why I put it in parentheses, because he was elite, born of elite parents. So he believed that was the best. Of course, he didn't necessarily live that. Next, a couple of things about it. First off, urban versus rural, industry versus agrarian. And that's why the tariff issue. Urban wanted tariff to either promote and then later protect industry. Farmers who don't have industry are more anti-tariff. They'll soon be called free traders. We'll come back to this. This is going to be a fight up to this day about tariffs. Which one?
They both say that.
That's it. That's saying which ones.
Which ones?
They both say that.
Republicans are led by the elites, but the.
Oh, what I put here. Yeah.
But the
They claim they're for the common.
Oh.
The Republicans claim to be for the common man, but they were actually led by elites. The Federalists didn't lie about it. We wanted the elites in charge.
Oh.
Next. The Republicans, or the Federalists said, the central governments need to be strong. That's why we wrote this Constitution. And that's why we have implied powers. Those implied powers, what was the implied, what represented this fight over implied powers? What's that?
The bank?
The bank. Stronger states, strict interpretation of the Constitution. Therefore, we don't believe, or we want to control implied powers. But there's a reason I put asterisks there, not because they'll be short IDs, even though very well could be. But the Federalists were in power. Who's ever in power wants a strong central government. We're in power. We like a strong central government. Who's ever out of power wants a weaker central government. As soon as Republicans took power, they started using the strong central government in their favor. You can always tell who's in power. They want the president to act strong and do these things. Right now, Democrats are saying President Trump is being too loose with executive orders. But I guarantee you, if a Democrat's elected in 2020, Republicans will be saying, we have to cut back on government spending and government power. By the way, that means whoever's in power wants a stronger government, whoever's out doesn't, meaning parties are kind of what? Aren't they kind of being hypocritical there? By the way, what are they planning? What are they hoping? Why are you looking at your phone? What are you doing? Because in the merged election, but not again. Right, hit the phone. Not again. That really makes me mad. I believe you, but not again. They expect you to forget what they said before. Did you catch what I said? They either expect you to not know enough to know what their position was when they weren't in power. They want you, parties all the time. When they're out of power, they want a weaker government. They come in, they want a stronger government. They want you to forget. They don't want you to know. Remember what I told you? It's time to start knowing stuff? That's how they take advantage of you. They do all the time. And it's kind of a big deal now, but it's a huge deal all the time, I guess. Britain and France. Britain was more run by the aristocracy. France had more. France, at least at first in the revolution, were giving more, at least men, rights, men more power, aka more democracy. Therefore, Paul McCartney. How did you get to Paul McCartney? What just happened? He's singing Band on the Run. There we go. Federalists feared the mobocracy. The Republicans wanted more democracy. That means more stuff. Not democracy, but more democratic. Where they wanted an elite few. And the important thing about the Federalists, they wanted an elite few because they were better. There's a belief that people on top were better. They're supposed to be on top. That's natural. Republicans, more and more, at least for white men, no one is naturally superior. So,
Even though they're still ran by the.
yeah, I know. There's going to be a lot of contradictions here. That's Thomas Jefferson's whole life. It's contradictions. Now, when it comes to government, which one is more conservative and which one is more liberal?
Republicans would look right.
In this context, yes. The more conservative, the more there's a belief that certain people should be on top. We'll get to this down the road. Oh, great place to stop. Is that right? Yeah. Then we got to do the Vietnam War. Got to finish Vietnam? Test in there?
Yeah.
I couldn't decide to put what concert to put up, so I went back to Paul McCartney, since now I got my camp. I'm going to do it on Wednesday. I thought we were going to be able to get a review book. The submission, I couldn't talk to the librarian, so I had to bump it back.
I just wanted to make sure there wasn't anything you're supposed to do.
Oh, I got to shut this off. Very good. Everyone come in, smile, say hi to the camera. Yeah, boy. You're going to steal a child? That's a federal crime. Huh?